So Anthropic dropped Opus 4.8 yesterday, and the internet is doing what it always does. It's looking at benchmark tables, coding scores, and how does it beat GPT and Gemini. And I want to talk about something different. Not whether it's smarter, but whether you can actually trust it inside a real project, because that's a completely different question, and it's the one that matters if you run implementations for a living. Here's what Anthropic really led with: not speed, reliability, judgment, and honesty. The specific claim, and there's a number behind it, is that this model is about 4 times less likely to miss its own mistakes than the last version, and it's more likely to tell you when it's uncertain instead of confidently making something up. If you're a PM, listen to that again. 4 times less likely to hand you something broken and call it done. That's not a capability story, that's a trust story. And trust is the entire game when you're putting AI anywhere near a deliverable. Nobody on your steering committee cares about a benchmark score. What they care about is, can I rely on what this thing produces? 3 things that hit home if you run projects. False closes. We have a name for when someone marks a task done and it isn't, it cascades. Dependencies trigger early. The next phase builds on the broken foundation, and AI that's 4 times less likely to false close is solving a problem you already fight on human-led teams. Risk flagging. An AI that surfaces uncertainty before it fails is doing early risk identification. Most AI tools today are like that team member who never raises a flag until something's already on fire. This one is supposed to raise the flag earlier. That's the part I actually care about. The delegation test. This is about how you decide what to hand off and to whom. It's always competence plus trustworthiness. You'll give a hard task to someone less experienced if you trust them to tell you when they're stuck. These reliability gains move AI up the delegation curve, not because it got smarter, but because it got more honest. Now let me get specific, because this is a software implementation channel, not a coding channel. We cater to project managers. This is about where your time actually goes on a system rollout. It's not writing code, it's the document layer, requirements, vendor statement of work, config workbooks, test scripts, status synthesis, risk registers, and change requests. That's where this model lives. A couple of concrete examples. It has a 1 million token context window, which in plain terms means you can drop an entire requirements document, the vendor's implementation guide, and your last 6 status reports in at once and ask where the gaps are. It doesn't forget the front of the document by the time it reaches the back. From a requirements traceability perspective, feed it the business requirements and the functional specs and ask what's unmapped. That's a tedious, error-prone, deeply human task right now. This is the kind of long, careful, cross-referencing work that this model is built for. Test case generation is another one here that you can basically use from a client's requirements. Status report synthesis from a pile of workstream updates. First draft risk registers. Reading a 90-page MSA and flagging the clauses that affect your timeline. None of that is coding. All of that is implementation reality. And the reliability improvement matters most here, because a confident wrong answer buried in a requirements analysis is the kind of thing that doesn't surface until UAT when it becomes expensive. There's a bigger thing underneath this. AI is starting to manage other AI. One model orchestrating subagents, running long multitasks without you babysitting every step. If you're a PM, you recognize that immediately. That's resource coordination, dependency management, and status reporting. The question isn't whether AI ends up in your workflow, it's whether the AI running them tells you something's off the rails, which loops right back to the trust point. So let's talk about cost for a moment, because nobody else will. Here's the part most launch videos skip. This is a premium model, and you should go in with eyes open. On the developer side, it's $5 per million input tokens and 25 per million output. A token is roughly 3/4 of a word. So feeding it a 100-page requirement stock and getting solid analysis back runs you somewhere under $1 a pass. Cheap per use, but it adds up fast at volume, which is why caching and batch discounts exist. But most of you aren't touching the API. You're using Claude in the browser. The free plan does not get you this model. Full stop. You need a paid plan. Pro is $20 a month and gets you Opus 4.8, but with usage limits on a rolling window. Opus is the heavy model. It chews through those limits a lot faster than the cheaper models do. If you're doing occasional deep analysis, Pro is fine. If this becomes your daily driver for real implementation work, you will hit the ceiling, and the next step up is Max, which will run you about $100 a month or $200 for the heavier tier. I'm telling you that up front because the worst outcome is you try it on the free plan, never actually touch the good model, and conclude the hype was nonsense. To use the thing everyone's talking about today, you have to pay to play. That's just the truth of it. So is it actually better than anything else out there? So here's my honest answer. On the raw benchmark, it trades blows with the latest from OpenAI and Google. Early reporting has it leading in some categories and not others. If you're shopping purely on scores, it's close. But that's the wrong lens for our world in project management and project implementation work. The differentiator isn't a benchmark point, it's the reliability and judgment profile. The model being honest about what it doesn't know. That's the thing that's hard to find anywhere else right now, and it's more to a PM than winning a math test. So I'm not going to tell you it's the smartest AI on earth. I'll tell you it's currently the one I'd trust most to sit next to a deliverable. For us, that's the better metric. It doesn't solve everything. Early testers still find hallucinations. There's still a last 10% problem, and the final polish on complex work needs a human. But that's not unique to AI. The last 10% one is the oldest problem in project delivery. The fact that AI hits the same wall your human teams hit is actually useful to know. It just tells you where the handoff sits. If you got burned by AI before and wrote it off, this release is worth another look. Not because the problem's gone, but because it's finally being taken seriously. The headline on Opus 4.8 isn't that AI got smarter, it's that AI might be getting better at knowing when it doesn't know. For anyone who runs implementations, manages stakeholders, or has ever cleaned up after an AI that lied to them, that's the story worth your time. Alright, that's my take. Let me know in the comments if you're testing it and what you're throwing at it. Until next time, I'm Stephen Blakeney, and I'll see you in the next episode.